Good morning. Happy Thursday. So I had asked for someone to get the audio recordings in the Common Joe case, State versus Joseph Brandon Pierce out of Missouri, St. Charles County, for the trial. Because I'm like, what happened? What happened? So I had, a viewer had contacted me and said they could do it. It was 4 CDs. And I don't know that viewer had already gone down there and got them or not yet. I hope they haven't, because yesterday, Mr. Pierce put up the CDs on his channel. So they're available to listen to. Audio quality is absolutely terrible. You can make out what's going on, but it's like in the sidebars with the jury during jury selection and things like that. You can't really hear what the jurors are saying. Not that that's important for most people. So some interesting things. First is that Pierce walked out basically after he voir dired the jury. So the prosecutor voir dired the jury, asked questions. Pierce didn't really understand what was going on or how to do it. He, I think, asked 4-ish questions, maybe 5, not without significant objections from the, without significant admonishments from the judge. Anyway, I'm not going to explain that whole thing. But he also used that time to try to prejudice the jury. Saying things like, I was denied my right to counsel, blah, blah, all the things you're not supposed to do, he did. He has gone out of his way to attempt to prejudice the jury. He changed the name of his channel to Dear Missouri Jury during the voir dire process, or voir dire, depending on where you are and how you want to say it. I call it voir dire. You can call it voir dire. It doesn't matter. Same thing. But during that process, he tried to prejudice the jury. He essentially said that he wouldn't be able to get a fair trial and that they should just go ahead and convict him because he was going to appeal, which is terrible, terrible strategy, terrible. So then he leaves. He thinks he's going to get arrested if he leaves. I don't know why. The court says, yeah, you could leave. We're still going to try you. We're just going to try you in absentia. But you could leave. So he left. Pierce had said that there was ring camera footage of the incident, but the state didn't have it. The state never produced it, and Pierce never produced it, obviously, because if there was ring camera footage that showed what Pierce's version was, that the dog was aggressive, then that would have been just awesome to help him not get convicted. But the state presented eyewitness testimony from the mother of the owner of the dog, from a neighbor who saw the incident, from the father of the owner of the dog who heard the shot, ran out, and gave his testimony about what happened in the situation, and the police officer who came and investigated and found the gun. The only interesting thing about finding the gun, I don't know what Pierce's plan was, but he told the officer that the gun was in all the places where the gun wasn't, and the officer ended up finding the gun between the box spring and mattress of his bed. He's apparently a renter. I don't know what has to go wrong in your life where you're his age and you're a renter. You rent a room. You rent a room, not a house or an apartment, but you rent a room. I don't know what has to go wrong in your life to be in that position, but apparently it's gone that wrong for Mr. Pierce, and I feel bad for him on that issue. So anyway, that was, while that was not technically character evidence, that did turn into character evidence of the kind of person he was, and the fact that he was trying to hide evidence of the incident led to, I think, I would expect it to have prejudiced the jury to think that he actually felt guilty because he was hiding evidence. So not smart plays by Pierce, but nothing really that he's done throughout this entire ordeal has been a smart play. So then the jury came back with finding of guilty. Then they went to the sentencing phase. They heard the mother testify. They heard the owner of the dog testify. I think that was it. I don't really remember. I had other things going on. I had children and whatnot going on. So I may not have been paying a lot of attention during that time. So that was fun and dandy. I feel really bad for the owner of the dog. Apparently, Pierce used a 380, which why anybody would buy it. If you're not a lady, if you're not female, and you're buying a 380, a 380 is basically an underpowered 9mm. You could get them small for concealed carry purposes. The cartridge is a little smaller than a 9mm cartridge, so you have a smaller frame and everything like that. But I don't personally see the point in a 380. And if you shoot like a 50, 60 pound dog, the dog is apparently a Catahoula mixed with German Shepherd. If you shoot the dog and you don't kill it, like with the 380, which is why I am personally a proponent of higher caliber weapons. My personal choice is 45 caliber. You don't see a lot of people going to the hospital with wounds from a 45 caliber. You do see a lot of people going to hospital with wounds from 9mm. So that's kind of why, dead people can't sue is really all I'm saying. Dead people can't sue. So, but obviously I'm not trying to spark a gun debate in my comment section. If 380 is your choice of caliber, if 9mm is your choice, awesome. 9mm has a lot of benefits, not a lot of recoil, smaller cartridge so you can get a bigger stack. Less expensive, more available ammunition. There are advantages. Yeah, I'm not trying to say they're not advantages. Everybody has their preferences, just personal opinion. So anyway, the court also laid out the procedural history for the record because Pierce wasn't there. And Pierce had more than a year to get an attorney. He didn't fill out the proper paperwork. I'd pointed out that there's paperwork he had to fill out, and in none of the recordings of any of his hearings that I heard on his channel, that he posted on his channel, and I did listen to all of those, because while you might not find this interesting, I do. Whenever he did ask for a public defender, you haven't provided me with a public defender. I believe I made a video on this at the time. If I didn't, I noted it in my head. I'm like, oh, just fill out the paperwork, bro. Just fill out the paperwork. That's all you have to do. Fill out the paperwork. You probably qualify. If you're at a point in your life where you're renting a room, then you probably qualify for a public defender. But he didn't do that. The court said he never filled out that paperwork. So, him not having an attorney. And all of his motions show that he didn't really want an attorney. He wanted AI to be counsel. And again, that's stupid. I have a case right now going on where opposing party is pro per, and I'm getting flooded with moving papers and declarations and memorandums of points and authority that are generated by AI that are just nonsense, and it's a huge waste of time. It's wasting my clients' resources. I have motions for sanctions already on the table, so I'm going to hopefully nip this in the bud. But AI is not, for all of the AI proponents in my comment sections, AI is not an attorney, and it's a good starting point for research at best. It is not an attorney. So yeah, his grounds for appeal, if he's going to appeal on all the motions that he filed, he was really upset because he had motions to be heard the day of trial, and the court said, no, it's too late. We're going to trial. I've read your motions, but I've denied them all. So his grounds for appeal are, I don't see what his grounds for appeal are. I don't see any realistic probability of success on appeal. There's always a chance courts of appeals get stuff wrong from time to time, but I don't see grounds for appeal. So I have a strong suspicion that he's going to lose his appeal, especially if he continues to use ChatGPT or whatever AI he's using to prep his appellate brief. I don't see it. So, and no, the Court of Appeal is not going to let him use Chat GPT in oral arguments or anything like that. He's going to have, I mean, he could use Chat GPT to prepare his oral argument and then read it, but he's not going to be able to have it there to listen to the oral arguments of opposing counsel and spit out an appropriate response. They're not going to allow that. In other news, on the frauditor troll front, interestingly enough, while my video was uploading yesterday, where I discussed frauditor troll's motion, he left a comment on another video saying something along the lines of, "Hey, are you going to cover my most recent motions, or do they not fit your narrative?" And again, I think the video that posted shortly after he posted his comment, my video finished uploading. So I mean, clearly, I don't understand why people think that I am going to give biased legal analysis. I don't like Randy. I don't like Frauditor Troll. I have no horse in this race. I have zero horse in this race. All you're getting is my opinion, my legal opinion based on the filings. And which gets me, and also I do want to say congratulations to Frauditor Troll. Apparently, he filed a motion to continue the settlement conference. His wife is apparently 4 months pregnant. Congratulations. I wish many years to your unborn child, health and everything to both the child and the mother. I hope it's a easy birth. I'm all in favor of Frauditor Troll expanding his family. I think that's a good thing. I personally think he's a retard, but his child didn't do anything wrong. And so, many years. So the whole thing in my comment section about, Frauditor Troll is bad, therefore DMA is good, or DMA is bad, therefore Frauditor Troll is good. And other comments were like, obviously, if you're at all critical in any way of Israel, then you're anti-Semitic. And, I had a guy, so I have competing, like one guy's calling me a liberal communist, the other guy's calling me a right-wing chud. Stupid people have boxes. They think in boxes. Either you're good or you're bad. Either you're Republican or you're liberal. And they can't, either you're pro-Frauditor Troll or you're pro-DMA. They can't think of anything outside of those boxes. I find it humorous. I really do. Like, I enjoy Barry is every time I talk about politics, he accuses me of being a right-wing chud. I mean, I enjoy it. I think it's hilarious seeing really stupid people say, I don't like you because you're not on my team. I find it to be hilarious. There's so many branching ways I can go off this. So where do I want to go off this? Well, let's talk about, let's talk about groups. Let's talk about groups. And let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, who I watch, I'm not, I don't buy into every opinion he has. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. I'm not endorsing Tucker Carlson. I think he is an honest actor. I think that the things that he's saying that he truly believes. But one of the things he keeps harping on is you can't judge groups. You can only judge individuals. It's not Christian to judge groups. It's Christian to judge individuals. And so he's laying this out through a Christian paradigm. So I'm going to address it through a Christian paradigm. I personally think that you should judge individuals as individuals and judge groups as groups. It doesn't make a lot of sense to not judge groups, because groups are real things. Humans are a social animal, and we form groups. Those groups are recognizable, they are identifiable, and they have patterns that we can make predictive analyses from. And it's as a group that these predictions will come true, not as an individual. So you could say, Italians like gabagool. In general, that is probably going to be a true statement. But you could also find individual Italians who are vegetarian, who don't eat gabagool, right? It's like a salami kind of thing, but it's capicola. I think is what it is. Then they call it gabagool. So gabagool. And I am part Italian, so you can't accuse me of being racist for saying that. Only part, though. So, but it is useful and informative to make decisions about groups based on the behavior of the group. And to say that it's not Christian to do that, I think is entirely misunderstanding most of the Old Testament and some of the New Testament. For example, how many times did God judge Israel for Israel's action? And Israel in the Bible is not 1948 nation state of Israel. It is completely different. So, sorry, Zionists. How many times did he judge Israel, as a group in the Bible? How many times? How many times did he judge entire nations? Like Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham was basically negotiating with God, like, hey, if there's 50 people there that are good, you save the city? Sure. If there's 10 people there, save the city? Sure. And then he can only find Lot. And, God judged them as a group. Various other nations throughout the Old Testament were, God condemned them and, had the Israelis wipe them out, or Hebrews or Jews or however you want to classify that group in the Old Testament. He'd have his chosen people wipe out that group, right? And you could judge, you as an individual can judge God's morality all you want. You could be smarter than God. I don't really care. I mean, you don't know all the facts. You only know basically the limited facts you're given. You're not omniscient. So, I'm going to completely disregard your moral analysis of God, because who the fuck are you? But I'm sure I'm going to get comments about this. But again, I'm looking at this through a Christian lens because Tucker is looking at it through a Christian lens. So in the Bible, there are countless examples of God judging groups as groups. In the New Testament, if this particular town doesn't welcome you, shake the dust off your feet and go on. You're judging them. That's a judgment against a group. Now, you also get judged as an individual, and awesome sauce, and Lot was saved from Sodom. So there is individual judgments as well, but your judgment as a group is not unchristian. And it's useful. Like if you're going to import Atlanteans from Atlantis, and you have statistics based on how they operate, how they function as a society, as a group, as a people, you can say, hey, we want that kind of behavior on average in our society. Let's import all these Atlanteans to us, or we don't. And you could also, in theory, say, this particular Atlantean is awesome, we want them, and this particular Atlantean we don't want and not. And you could do both. You could say, hey, we're going to accept immigration applications from Atlantis. And then you can make a judgment as a group that this group, we want to accept individuals from this group. And then you can judge the individuals and say, well, this particular individual is not a good person, has violence tendencies, has a criminal record in Atlantis, so we don't want this person. This person is a doctor, clean record, blah, blah, blah. We want this person. You can do both. It's not a zero-sum game. Again, this isn't a or B kind of thing. You can do both. You can hate the Republicans and the Democrats. You can hate Fraud or Troll and DMA. DMA and Fraud or Troll can both be wrong, and they can both be right on different issues. Just because I forget other points that I was thinking about on my drive to work, let's move on to Iran. So apparently now India is also going to be getting oil. At least they got one tanker of oil through the Hormuz Straits. So BRICS countries, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and what is the A? South Africa? No, BRICS. Yeah, S is for South Africa. So it looks like some BRICS countries, the enemies of the United States, for whatever reason we need enemies, I don't really know. Like, they're on the other side of the world. Like, why do they need to be our enemies? Oh, India isn't our enemy. Well, we seem like we're trying really hard to make India our enemy. Talking down to them like they can't buy Russian oil because they have to do what we tell them to. And then saying, oh yeah, we'll let you buy Russian oil. And they're like, we're a sovereign nation with over 1 billion people. Like, you didn't stop us, bro. And what are we going to do, invade India? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. So, that's bad. And then there was an attack in, was it Oman? I think it was Oman. So, Oman is on the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia. And interestingly enough, their oil port, the port where they store and ship out oil from, was attacked yesterday. And I haven't seen confirmation of this, but there are a lot of the wonks, a lot of the people who are like, I studied the stuff. I go through it. These autists who like go frame by frame because there's video of the attack. They're saying that it was a Lucas drone. I want to say Lucas. It's the American version, the American knockoff of the Shahed drone, Garand drone. Same basic body plan. They're saying that it was a Lucas drone and the direction of travel would be consistent from it having been launched from the Navy, from the U.S. Navy. It wasn't coming from Iran. It was coming from like somewhere in the Indian Ocean. Now, I don't know if that's true. This is unconfirmed. These are just policy wonks. But anyway, that's really interesting. I don't know what the U.S. would gain. It seems like, Trump just authorized or said he was going to. I don't know if he actually can authorize it or whatever. I think he can authorize it. But he's saying he's going to release like 1.8 million barrels of oil from our strategic reserves. Oh, and the IEA authorized 400 million barrels from the member states to be released, which is massive. So it seems like Trump is trying to keep oil prices down. I'm not an expert in this. Take this with a grain of salt. I think he's really trying to keep oil prices down to keep the U.S. from getting really pissed off at this nonsense that's going on in the Middle East. And, if you can keep the price of oil from spiking above 100 and shooting up to like 150, 200 bucks a barrel, which I've heard people say that it could go to 200 bucks a barrel pretty easily. Then he can keep fighting this particular little war. I don't know. None of it makes sense to me, but it also wouldn't shock me if we did strike that oil exporting facility in Oman. Anyway, still have no sign of resolution. Apparently, the supreme leader and the president of Iran are talking about ending the war if the U.S. agrees to reparations and security guarantees. Who knows if that'll happen. At least, on the good side, at least they're finally saying what their actual demands might generally look like. And that's the first step towards negotiating a settlement. Having demands is the first step of getting a settlement. In law, it's pretty easy. The complaint states what the demand is, and then there's a starting point, and you could work a settlement agreement out from there. Hopefully we get this resolved quickly because, I do a lot of driving. I don't like high gas prices. I don't like paying more for everything. You probably don't either. I think it is in everybody's best interest to get this resolved. While I don't think we're materially affecting the military capabilities of Iran, I do think their citizens are suffering because we're pounding the piss out of the civilian infrastructure, and that's not good. I think it's in Israel's best interest because apparently they're just getting the snot knocked out of them. I mean, they have a lot of controls over what comes out, but the reporting that I've seen from people who are in the area say that like it's just like overnight hundreds of Hezbollah missiles were launched, which, Israel intercepted a lot of them because these aren't high end. These are basically pipes filled with explosives that they launch. But then Israel exhausted all the loaded up air defense missiles they have. And Iran had worked this out with Hezbollah. So Iran's missiles arrived shortly afterwards when the I don't know what you call them, the missile launching things were empty. So Iran's big missiles got through. Like, it's just not good. Like, the populations in Iran and Israel are suffering terribly. The populations in the Gulf states are also, getting caught in the crossfire. I mean, I think it's in everybody's best interest to wrap this up. That's just the opinion of a first-year family law attorney. Take it or leave it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.